Guys, welcome to beginner jewelry making. My name is Nancy. I'm going to be walking you through a couple different types of projects to get you started making your own jewelry. So the projects and supplies that I have in front of me, you can get at any crafting store, as well as the crafting sections at Meyer and Walmart. So they're easily accessible. Given that a lot of stuff is closed right now, you can still also order online to all the craft stores, and you can do a pickup at the store. So the projects that we're going to be working on, I'm going to show you how to make necklaces. This is a necklace that I made for a Halloween costume. It was a mermaid one year. I'm going to teach you how to make bracelets, as well as earrings, as well as I'm going to teach you how to do charms. So I'm going to scoot all of these off to the side so we've got a little bit more room to actually see what we're going to be working on. You're going to need a couple basic supplies for this. You're going to need at least one pair of needle nose pliers. You don't want to use normal handyman, like tool type pliers, like needle nose pliers. These are round nose pliers, excuse me. The reason behind that is you don't want any tool markings on your jewelry, and a lot of times regular needle nose pliers will have some hatching in here, and it'll mark up your metal. So you want round nose pliers, excuse me. You'll need a pair of crimping pliers, and this is for the beading wire, and I'm going to show you those in a minute. These take these little crimp tubes, which I'm going to show you a little bit closer. These are tiny, tiny little tubes of metal that you put around wire to close it, because you can't tie wire. You have to close it with a tube. And then the last thing that you're going to need is a pair of clippers or nippers. These are very sharp, tiny detail wire cutters. You can also use bigger ones. I keep a pair of regular toolbox wire cutters in with my stuff just in case the wire that I'm cutting is especially thick or it's kind of giving me some trouble. We probably won't need these. These are also good for cutting pieces of chain if you need it. So that's it for the tools. For the supplies, there's a couple different things that you can get depending on your project. This is beading wire. You can get a bunch of different types of beading wire and beading thread. I'd recommend something that's 3/10 of a millimeter. Get any kind that you want. If you're just starting out, get the stuff that's the cheapest. Wire. You are going to need some clasps. There's a couple different kinds you can get. These ones are lobster clasps. They look like lobster claws. The ones that I'm using are 15 millimeter. You can also get much smaller ones, but I find these ones easier to get on and off. You're going to need jump rings or split rings. And the difference between the two is jump rings, they all come in multiple sizes. I've got a whole package of them here that's different sizes. The difference between a jump ring and a split ring is a jump ring is a single loop of wire, and a split ring is 2 loops of wire. There we go. So it's 2 loops. It basically looks like a really, really tiny keychain ring. Both of these are 5 or 6 millimeter jump rings. You're again going to need crimp beads. Those ones we're going to need at some point or another. If you're making earrings, you need earring wires. There's a couple different types. There are standard earring wires like you would see on any pair of jewelry that you can get at any store. There are also lever back earring clasps. And these ones open and close with a tiny spring. So that's what they look like open. And then you squeeze them to close. You're also going to need head pins. These are pieces of wire that are flattened on the bottom so that beads don't slide off of them. I have a couple different sizes. I prefer 3-inch ones, but you can also get ones that are 2-inch. Depends on your preference. The longer it is, the easier they are to wire wrap, so I prefer the 3-inch ones, but I'll use the 2-inch ones in a pinch if I can't find them. You'll also obviously need a slew of different types of beads, different types of charms and beads that you can get at any craft store. You can also get charms of different types at the craft stores or buy them online. This one is a charm with holes on both ends. I'm going to show you what that looks like once we get to make a bracelet. And then you have ones that just have a single hole that you can make into charms. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do, so for a necklace, you're going to need beading wire, some kind of clasp, jump rings, and crimp beads. I'm going to leave this up here so we can see it. And the process, so before I even get started, the process for necklaces and bracelets is essentially the same. So before you start your necklace, you want to figure out how long you want it to be. This one, I think, since we're on this mat, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 inches long, so doubled, that's 22. So it's a 22-inch. Necklaces are measured by the full length of the chain instead of whatever length they hang down. So you get to decide how long you want your necklace to be. You want to cut your wire. I always give myself more wire than what I need. It makes your life easier when you're trying to get things strung. So say you want a 20-inch necklace. I'm going to cut at least 24-inch piece of wire for a 20-inch necklace. You want to give yourself at least 4 inches extra. So 20, and then let's go 25. You're going to use your nippers to cut the wire. We're going to set this off to the side. Once you have your wire cut, the first thing that you're going to want to do is put your clasp on it. I'm going to use one of these lobster clasps, and I'm going to need a crimp bead, so a single crimp bead. So I'm going to thread my crimp bead on first, and then my lobster clasp. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the wire back on itself and push the end through the crimp bead and leave a little bit of a tail. So it looks like that. And then I'm going to push that crimp bead as close as I can get it to that lobster clasp. And I'm going to use my crimp pliers. There's 2 settings on the crimp pliers. So this setting is to close it, and then this setting is to crimp it shut. So I'm going to put the crimp bead on the pliers, on the inside hole, and crimp it closed. Then it's going to look like a C. It's a little hard to see because I can't get it quite head on. Then you use the second setting. Come on. To squeeze it shut. And that makes a nice closure on your wire. You don't have to cut this end. You can leave this just as it is. And I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to set this off to the side. I already have a bracelet started that's using this method. So this bracelet is already mostly strung. And stringing your necklaces and bracelets is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that. You're just stringing the beads onto the wire and pushing it down. But I will show you with this tail here, that we have, you want to tuck that back into your beads. So you want to run that along with the primary wire back through the beads to hide the end. This gives your bracelet a little bit of extra strength and also saves you for some cutting. Okay, so you've got your bracelet. You can go ahead and start stringing without measuring, but if you want to make sure that you're accurate, you can take a tape measure and measure around your wrist. So my wrist is 6 inches. I usually like making my bracelets at least 6.5, if not 7 inches. You want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room to be able to actually get the bracelet on and off. If you make it too tight, it's going to be really, really hard to get it on and off. So I'm going to make mine a total length of 7 inches. This doesn't mean that you're going to need 7 whole inches of beads. This is the total length, is the length of the beads plus the length of both of your clasps. So right now, this is total length of just over 6 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and add my clasp on now because I know that my bracelet needs to be between 6.5 and 7 inches. So when you get ready to add your other end of your clasp, if you're using a lobster clasp, all you really need is another jump ring or a split ring to be able to clasp it to. I'm going to use a split ring. The jump rings have a tendency to sometimes fall off because there is a gap in the ring when you open and close it. Okay, so I did that wrong. I'm going to put my crimped bead on first, and then my split ring. I'm going to thread the end back through the crimp bead, and I'm going to snug everything up now. Here's the tricky part when you're finishing these bracelets, is getting everything snugged together. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start running that wire back through the beads like I did on the other end, because again, we want to hide that wire. I'm going to run it through maybe 3 or 4. It went through 5, close enough. Whatever you can get. And then I'm just going to, from that end, I'm going to just keep pulling, pushing the beads together, and pulling the wire. This takes a little bit of wiggling. Sometimes it helps to lay it flat on a table and get it snugged up like that. I'm going to leave it about there with a little bit of extra between this bead and the loop. Now you're going to use your crimp pliers. Make sure you've got them in the right place around the crimp bead. And I'm going to squeeze it once to close it, and once again to fold the bead back on itself to make it look nice. And then you are done. We need to trim this wire. You're going to use your nippers, get as close to the bead as you can. Make sure that you're not cutting the wire on the inside. Only cut the tail. Don't cut the wire that you just strung on, or you're going to have to start over. So I'm going to go in here, get as close to the beads as I can, give it a quick snip, and then the beads will cover up the end so it's not poking you, and you are done. You can try it on at this point if you want. That is the lobster clasp method of doing a closure. You can also do bracelets out of chain with a single charm. So I took, sometimes the most cost-effective way of getting supplies is to buy discount jewelry and then cannibalize it for other projects. Got a clasp. It has a large ring that I don't know what I want to use it for, but I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to take that clasp off. This piece of chain is not long enough to go around my wrist. It's got about 1.5 inches to go, but I have this really nice eye charm that has these 2 holes on either end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 jump rings on this and then run the chain through them and put a clasp on it. So the jump rings are cut open for you when you get them. To open them, you want to hold one end with one plier and one end with the other, and very gently twist. You're going to twist it open. Kind of see how that is twisted open. You don't have to twist it open very far. Only twist it open as much as you need to get around or to get the ring through the thing that you're putting it through. The metal on this charm is a little big, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up a little bit more. And you're going to run the ring. I'm going to adjust my pliers here. Thread the ring through the loop. And then go ahead and close it back again. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, twisting open my ring. And I'm actually going to leave the ring open this time because I need to put the chain on the ring. The ring is what connects the two together. Okay, so that's closed, and that'll stay on there now. So from here, I want to measure and see how much chain I actually need. So that, I always ballpark this. I don't really ever measure it. I'm going to put a clasp on this side, but I want to know how much chain I need for either side of the bracelet. I'm going to measure around my wrist, see how much chain I need, mark it with my nail, and then add another, let's say 3 links for wiggle room. So I can go ahead and cut this there with my nippers. So I'm going to cut that chain. Sometimes you want to put your hand over it just to make sure that it doesn't go flying on you. And then I'm going to cut that chain in half because I know that that's the total length of chain I need, but I need the chain on both sides of the charm and then a clasp down here. So I'm going to fold that chain in half, find roundabouts the middle section, or the middle length, the halfway point, and cut that. I'm going to put my hand over this so this doesn't go flying. So there's my one piece, and then there's my other piece. And now I'm going to open up this jump ring on the other end, again, threading the chain onto it. Okay, and then getting that jump ring closed back up again. Okay, we now have chain on either end of that bracelet. And I'm going to go ahead and put this toggle clasp on it so you can see how that closes. Now to get the toggle clasp on there, we're going to need 2 more jump rings. And this is the same method as before. You're going to take your jump ring, put the jump ring on there, and then put one of the toggles on there. Use your other pair of pliers to close that ring. And there's one end. Then you're going to do the same on the other end. Sometimes you have to readjust your pliers if they're in the way. There we go. And we are done. So this goes on. So the bar goes through the loop and holds it shut that way. Now you have a finished bracelet. So those guys are all done. The next thing that we're going to do is earrings. So earrings are my favorite simply because they're easy to make and they're very fast. These ones are simple ones that I just made with charms, jump rings, and earring wires. These ones were a little bit more complicated. An earring wire, a piece of chain, and then head pins and beads on that piece of chain. So each one of those lights, I strung onto a head pin, wrapped it shut, and then put it on the wire, or on the chain. So we're going to start with the dangly portion. Depending on the type of bead you have, Sometimes the hole in the bead is too big. This is really easy to see on this spool. That you can hardly see the hole on the one in my right hand. The spool in my left hand, the hole is huge. This end of this head pin is only so big. So when you're putting that bead on there, that's gonna stop and it won't fall off. But if I were to try to put this on the end of that spool, it just pulls right through. It doesn't stay. So you can put beads on the end of it for decoration or for utility to keep them from falling off. So I put a seed bead on the end of that head pin to keep it from falling off, and because it's pretty. So I'm going to put one on either end. So I've got a seed bead on either end of this one. I'm going to do the same on the second one. Because they're a pair of earrings, you want them to match. So I've got those two all set. Now we are going to do some basic wire wrapping. You're going to need your round nose pliers for this. And by wire wrapping, what I mean is that you're going to take that wire and twist it back on itself. You're going to make a loop and then do 2 or 3 twists to close the loop and to hold the pin together, hold the whole charm together. So I'm going to take this head pin with the beads on it, clamp it in my round nose pliers about 2 or 3 millimeters away from where that bead ends. And then I'm going to take this, the end, and fold it 90 degrees back on itself, so it forms a right angle. Then I'm going to reposition my pliers ever so slightly so that they're at a 45-degree angle to that bend. And I'm going to push this wire around one of the edges on the pliers. So it's actually kind of easier to see like this. I'm going to push it around the pliers until it forms a hook. So it looks like that. And you're going to push the head all the way back around until it closes the loop. And you're going to start wrapping this wire around itself 2 or 3 times. It can be as far apart or as close together as you want it to be. I'm going to take this end and twist it a little bit tighter. So that's a little sloppier than what I like, but I'm also working on camera instead of working really close to my face. But we have this tail right here. We want to snip that off. I'm going to put the pliers in a little bit further in and give that a little bit of a snip. So that is now a finished dangle. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. You're going to clamp the wire in your pliers, fold the wire 90 degrees, wrap the end that doesn't have beads on it around one of the prongs of the pliers, wrap it further around, closing the loop, and then start bending the wire back on itself. Alrighty, that is really sloppy. I don't like that at all. So that does not look good. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you don't like your wrap job, you can cut the head pin off. I'm going to do it down here. So you can cut the head pin, throw it away, and start over. So again, taking my pliers, clamping the wire in the pliers, bending the wire 90 degrees, wrapping the edge that doesn't have beads around one side, and then wrapping the wire back on itself and around. I'm going to pay a little bit closer attention to where I'm placing that wire now. There we go. That's much better. Okay. I'm going to take that tail, I'm going to snip it off, and try not to drop it. Getting my pliers in as close as I can get, covering it up so it doesn't go flying, and snipping it off. There we go. If this hangs over and you can feel that cut end, you can very gently, especially if you're using glass beads or you'll shatter the bead, very, very gently push that edge back in towards the post. Okay, so that's done. Now we're ready to put them on earrings. We're going to need 2 jump rings for this and 2 earring wires. Because again, we're making a matched set. So we're going to pick up 1 jump ring, open it up, put the finished beaded wire or beaded head pin on there, and then put the earring wire. I'm going to need my second pair of pliers here. And bend the jump ring closed. Oops. Bend the jump ring closed. There is 1. And now for the second one. Bend the jump ring open. Thread the post and the earring wire. And then bend the jump ring closed. Okay, and you have a finished pair of earrings. You can, if you would like, I'm going to take this jump ring off, because this is a little bit dangly. If it dangles a little bit too much and you don't like something that dangles that much, you don't have to use the jump ring. This type of earring wire has a loop on the bottom that can be opened. So you can take that loop, open it up ever so slightly, and thread the loop on the finished beaded head pin on there, and then gently bend the earring post back closed. I don't recommend doing this often because a lot of times when I've tried to do this, that loop on the earring wire will fail, and this dangle will come off of the earring wire. I've had that happen more times than I care to admit, so I prefer to use a jump ring like down here because I think it's a little bit more stable, but this is a little bit shorter of a dangle than this one is. So do whatever you find most aesthetically pleasing. Sometimes there isn't an open and close thing on there and you have to use a jump ring. These leverback clasps, you can't open that hole right there. It's a closed hole, so you have to use a jump ring with those ones. Okay, now the last thing that I'm going to show you is how to make just a straight charm. The only difference between the earrings and a straight charm is that you're putting a lobster clasp on the end. So this is my head pin with beads on it, wrapped closed. And then there's 2 split rings on this one. There's 1 and then 2 and then a jumper and then a lobster clasp. This is really nice because you can take it on and off of a bracelet. So you can use this to make charm bracelets is what it's really good for. So you can clip this charm to a bracelet and then you have something that you can take on and off. If you don't mind the look of the lobster clasp, you can also put it on a necklace chain. You can put it through a necklace chain so that you have a necklace that you can switch in and out. But what I really love to use these for is stitch markers. So these would loop around the stitches on your knitting or your crochet, and it marks the beginning and end of every round or where the stitch pattern changes. There's a whole slew of reasons why you would use stitch markers in knitting and crochet. But I make a lot of these. It's mostly what I use that for. For the pre-made charms, these are even easier than doing the wire wrapping, because all you need is your clasp and a jump ring. So what you'll do is you'll open up your jump ring, thread a lobster clasp onto it, thread the charm. That's not the right pair of pliers. And twist it close. And that's it. You're done at that point. So you have a finished charm. You can use these as zipper pulls too. Decorations on any of your bags, what have you. And that, I think, is pretty much all I have for you guys. We've gone through a couple different types of projects. Please feel free to rewind and pause the video as much as you need to rewatch parts. If you have any questions, I will be in the comments section for this video. You can always leave me a comment and I will answer your questions for you. And I hope everybody has a great day and is staying safe and healthy right now. So don't forget to love each other and have a great day. Bye.